This is Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's not much of a walk along, it's a conversation about the film. I'm John Carreri, aka Chef Curry, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddys Revenge. These are just opinions, this is just stuff that, that I perceive, that I get from the film, I'm a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, always have been. Since I was young, I always found Freddy to be a bit different than your typical slash. You're Jason, you're Freddy. No, you're Jason, you're Michael. You're, Ghostface. Like, just you're not your normal slash. Like this motherfucker is the worst of the bunch because he's in your most private, deepest thoughts. That's what makes Freddy Krueger is the epitome of uh uh, a pervert. At the end of the day, he's a total perv. You know, and his backstory now. Um, in the series, they call him a child killer, but in reality, in what they're really saying is, Freddy Krueger was a child molester, and he fucked around with like all these people's kids, and he got they brought him to court and they forgot to read him his Miranda rights. So when they did that, they let him go. So the town took it into their own hands and they burned the motherfucker. They burned the motherfucker down in his boiler room. That's and Freddy comes back to get revenge on the Elm Street kids, and get revenge on the parents by doing what hurts them most by going for their children. So Nancy, the heroine of the first film, she defeats Freddy, taking back all her power from her, and we lose Johnny Depp and Amanda Weiss along the way, and we get to see a John Saxon, and it was good. Nightmare on Elm Street reinvented the slasher gene to brought it to new levels, and the stories could be endless with it's to deal with the mind. All right, like you're dealing with the mind with Freddy. You're not, reality. Things are based in reality, but you got things going on inside you that that'll fuck you up. That he'll fuck you up, and so the next year they rushed out a sequel real fast. And we got what we're watching right now is Freddys Revenge. You know, considered the gayest, like the first gay movie, because I'm saying it's not gay, so like homosexual subtext that's in this film. It's not subtext, it's text. It's there, like, and when you look at it as the character of Jesse, he is in real life a gay actor. Um, Mark Patton plays the main character, who they call the Scream Queen. He plays Jesse, the hero of the film, so to speak. And Jesse's a little doofy, and there kind of has like you'll see throughout the movie how he like he does one thing, like the girl's trying to comfort him and he'll run to his boy's house instead. You got the coach who's like a total fucking dick, and you find out, that he's into like S&M gay shit at the bar, and it's just how it is. But this movie switched it up because it's not really. Freddy comes. It's a possession film. Okay, it is a possession film, and unlike the first film or subsequent sequels, this one, takes Freddy. He's trying to inhabit the body of this young kid Jesse, and he wants to wreak havoc on the Elm Street kids, and it's cool. But it's the weakest in the series. Actually, I want to say this has the highest body count in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Somewhere around like 10 or like 15. Like that's pretty high count for for a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, which usually don't have many, except for like the third and the fourth film really had the most kills in it. The third one had probably like 7 or 8, and the fourth one had at least like 5 or 6. But the fifth one had like 4. The sixth one had like 3. Wes Craven's Nightmare had like 3. Freddy vs. Jason, Jason did most of the killing in Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy really didn't get to. Freddy pretty much just fought Jason. He didn't really get to have fun. And that's one thing that always kind of bugged me about Freddy vs. Jason. They didn't. It felt more like a Jason movie than it felt more like a Friday the 13th movie than it did a Freddy movie. The only thing that made the film different from a Friday the 13th movie was it didn't take place. It didn't take place at Camp Crystal Lake. It takes place in Elm Street. Okay, that's really what happened with that movie. But Freddy was underused in that film. He was more of just wisecracking, fucking with people, but you don't get to see him. You don't get to see him. Do some crazy shit he does in his dreams. So. I like the introduction of Freddy into this movie. He comes in as he's trying to explain when he tells him you got the body, but I got the brains, and he peels his fucking scalp back. And then he screams. And like I was saying with Freddy versus Jason, which is kind of off topic, but when talking about one Nightmare movie, I tend to not just talk about one. I talk about them as a whole, as if they're one movie, even though they are separate. They're not obviously one whole movie, but the linear storyline that is followed throughout the films. You watch it as a whole, and you get an understanding of the Freddy Krueger character, and you understand where he's coming from, because as much as he is the villain in this, he's become somewhat of a, I don't want to call him an anti-hero, because he's nowhere near it and he's not trying to help you, but he has a way about him that changes that changes the way people perceive. Now, we're at a scene now in the movie where Jesse, he's nodding out in what looks like science class, and Grady's about to fuck with him. Grady's his friend, but also fucks with him a lot. The snake.
If you want to play with animals, Mr. Walsh, join the circus.
The chick in this movie is this is I think her first movie. Kim Myers. She later played in Hellraiser Bloodline, and a few other pictures. I always thought she kind of looked like a young Meryl Streep, but that's me. She kinda does. Cordless phones with the fucking antenna.
Where you going, kid?
Taking it back. There's Googer. fame from Return of the Living Dead. I think he was Bert. You know, his no, he was also known for the Feast films. He was the bartender. You know. So here's another thing coming up in the movie. It's where Jesse has to cause they just moved into the Nancy's old house from the first movie. So you know he puts on a tape and he starts dancing really if you have to be watching it to understand what I'm saying is it's pretty, risky. It's greasy. And he dances like this movie. A lot of kids in the '80s that were gay growing up. This movie brought it out. It made them comfortable because it threw homosexual themes into a soon to be iconic franchise. And it becomes a bit different. And you yeah, and his mom and his girlfriend catch him dancing like that. I thought that was pretty funny, but the whole idea of this film, they took Freddy in a different direction, and they never brought back his character of Jesse in later sequels. You never really know what happens to him after this movie. And, I always thought of, if they were to revisit his character, they would do it like this. He's out of the closet. He's married to a dude, and he adopted a kid. And the kid starts having nightmares. And the kids around the town start, all having nightmares about this dude with a hat, a fedora, and a red and green sweater. And, from there he has to try and, stop Freddy, and save his kid. Which, that's a pretty good fucking idea, I think, if you were to revisit it. Or you could go the other way and he eventually married her. He married, the actress plays Kim Myers, the actress Kim Myers, and, they had a kid. You could do it like that. But since all the controversy this movie, brought about, it would make sense to make Mark Patton what he is, because, it'll bring everything full circle within this film. It'll be like, okay, see, he was in the closet the whole time, and he's coming out. And at a part in this, if you look at the Freddy character, the Freddy is trying to come out of him. So, you could say he's he's trying his best to to keep it in, but Freddy's bringing it out of him. And another thing, psychologically, Freddy's using his deepest, darkest desires against him. Making him feel ostracized, making him more susceptible to Freddy's, ruses, to his traps. The writer of this movie, I can't think of his name right now. Let me see. Where is it? No. Here we go. The film was written by David Chastain. That's who it is, and he at first denied the movie had any type of gay subtext to it. And then later on, after Mark the actor Mark spoke out about it, he started saying, yeah, I did put it in there, but he was taking credit for it now that it's a big thing. And the character, Mark Patton, feels some type of way about it. It's brought up in the documentary Scream Queens, which is pretty much about the character, the actor Mark Patton, as he is really a Scream. He's not your normal final girl. He's he's really, he's the scream, like he's like the chick in this movie, you know, if that makes any sense. And you could really say, but if looking at it from a different perspective, you could really say that, you know, the final girl is, you know, Kim Myers, played by Lisa Weber, you know, so, Lisa Weber played by Kim Myers is what I mean. So, like, you could say, like, she really is the final girl, and, you know, and throw it in reverse, but the way he screams in this movie, you know, he really screams like a girl, and, you know, it's not something you really see, because, you know, at the time, you gotta remember, this is like pre-AIDS epidemic, you know, and at the time, you know, it was hard for, you know, if you, like, gay actors, like, before they would submit to, like, films, like, they'd have to get a blood test, you know, and, you know, a lot of, you know, AIDS relatively hits the, you know, the gay community more so than others, but everyone gets it, but everyone could get it, but, you know, and Mark Penn does have AIDS, you know, he's very, you know, open about it, he talks about it, he helps people with it, so, you know, I guess he's, you know, he found his calling, but he left acting for a long time after this movie, like, he went off because he felt he couldn't be coming out of the closet and, you know, in the film industry, because it was just too much for him. So he went and, like, secluded himself in Mexico. Enough of that. We're now seeing the Freddys glove, you know, in the furnace. You know, Jesse's found it wrapped in a rag in the furnace. The furnace turns on, and any Treb killed for me. He wants, that's what his thing is. He wants, because I guess he is not strong, like, because I guess you kind of bring it back in, what they kind of brought it into Freddy vs. Jason. He's not, since Nancy took all the power from him, he's not strong enough to come into the, you know, to fuck with people. Like in Freddy vs. Jason, I guess one of the reasons you could say why he didn't get to do his fair share of killing is because he wasn't strong enough. People forgot about him. And, you know, in later sequels, like, the house that he lives in is just completely fucked. You know, and it's like ground zero for all Freddy's mischief. I always liked this actress with the black hair. I always thought she had, like, this thing about her. She's pretty. She's definitely fuckable. You know, and Freddy's not strong enough, so he has to use Jesse as a conduit to get strong enough so he could live in the real world and cause havoc, you know. But, you know, if you remember, when you bring Freddy into the real world, you know, the laws of this world, like, he has to abide by them, meaning pain, like, getting, like, hurt, like, he could bleed, you know, he's more vulnerable. So you gotta, you gotta see it like that. You know, he's more vulnerable in this world. So you can understand that when he does finally come out in this movie and he torments all the kids at the fucking pool party, he you know, it's like he has his supernatural abilities, but he is it begs to come to the clue, is he, like, could the laws of, like, our world, like, affect him as of now, or does he still have his, and from what it looks like, he still does have somewhat of his, you know, his little powers and shit, like, because he does cause fire and make steam come out and burst pipes, so he's definitely something. It's just you're taking Freddy out of what makes him Freddy. In this movie, they kind of broke the mold and took it in a different direction, because this movie could have really went a lot of different places. And packed them. I always thought the bird burning up and exploding was just a little, it was a little weird. It was kind of out of place. But this thing in this movie is the houses, with like the heat is constantly blasting because Freddy, generates, he keeps turning the furnace on. So the house is fucking like they're sweating. So this film really does do things a little, it does break the mold and it does do things a little different. And, that's cool. So, now this is one of the scenes coming up where, Carrie Jesse goes into an S&M bar. And, in the script, they said that there was like a transvestite club. But what possesses him to go to this bar, I still really don't understand. But if you look at this, what's the underlying tones within the film, it makes sense that his character would end up there. The bartender with the spiky on his arms, that's Robert Shea, the producer of New Line, the film and of New Line Cinema. 18 was the drinking. I never quite understood this. Why he would even have to listen to him, the coach, being on the, outside of school. Like, why does he have him go run laps in the fucking gym? Because he was out underage drinking? Is that like what trying to say? And so they got him in. He's in the shower now. The coach, gym teacher, whatever you want to call him, is in his office. And now this is where weird things start to happen. In a sense, this is what makes this once again a unique film in the series is that the coach who dies is not a teenager who wasn't dreaming. Like, he wasn't dreaming at all. So Freddy keeps coming out into the real world. This is Freddy Krueger pretty much just toying with his victim playing with his food before he eats it, really. You know, and that's what Freddy's good at putting you through some sort of anguish before you finally, get yours. So he's gonna do some weird shit to throw you off, get your fear level up because he feeds off of fear. And if you think about it, this is another thing. Freddy Krueger and Pennywise really aren't so different at the end of the day. At the end of the day, they both go after children. They both work off of your fears. And they get strength from your fear. Both of them as characters. As horror villains. See now here you see the coach getting dragged across the floor by an invisible, Freddy is an entity, is pulling him. See, and as you can see, like Freddy's pulling him into the shower. He rips his clothes. And he slaps his ass with a towel, which I thought was kind of funny. Another thing that's very, homoerotic. And this is where you see Jesse turn into Freddy. And this is just a stunt double. This wasn't even Robert Englund in this scene. This is someone else. And I thought this was it makes Freddy look ridiculous. Like he's slugged. Like, look at him. Ooh.
We found him out on the highway wandering around. He was naked. I'd keep a short leash on him if I were you.
Jesse, come here.
Two questions. You answer them, we can all go to bed. What's taking, son? Who you getting it from?
Yeah, seeing the parents hit him with they think he's getting high because like his, erratic behavior. And in the 80s, that's like the first thing they thought about, instead of look at the times. And you see he's unscrewing the gates off of the window that Nancy's father, John Saxon, put on the windows in the last movie, to keep Nancy inside. And you see he's taking them off. He had a push-start engine in his car, for his car.
He needs professional help. I think we have to take you to see a psychiatrist.
Oh, come on, Cheryl. Yeah, you go ahead. What the hell will I do?
I don't know. I just feel he needs help and we don't know how to give it to him.
Oh, come on, Cheryl.
Are you hearing me? That boy's in trouble.
Larry's not in trouble. What that boy needs is a good goddamn kick in the butt. That's what he needs. Tell you what he needs. He needs a methadone thing.
He said he needs a methadone clinic. Just stuff like that. Like that's like where everyone's head went to. Like as soon as you start acting a little different. I think Jesse thinks it was a dream. Like he knows he did it.
I got wasted last night. He must have been working late. Some maniac came in and spiked him up like a kibasa. Hacked him in the shower. He got bloody footprints all over the place.
And see, like he knows he did it, And I guess at the time, Jesse didn't know if it was a dream or not. And, you feel bad for him. Really, he's just a kid just getting tormented, He's like playing the facade. This is the only time in the movie you see one of the kids that you hear the jump rope. You hear the jump rope song. It's like the only time you hear it in this song in the movie.
Morning, Jess.
See, he's not up against
How come it took him 5 years to solve this?
Right price.
You didn't know anything about the murder across the street? And the crazy girl that lived here that solved the whole thing?
He told me something about it.
You mean you knew something about this and you...
Come on, Cheryl. How do you think we got such a good deal here?
Did they tell you that that girl lost her mind? And her mother killed herself in our living room?
What?
Did they tell you that?
This is where Jesse's bringing back, backstory to the house for the things going on. The father knew the father knew something that happened, and they figured not to tell anybody. And in the continuity, this film takes place 5 years after the first. 5 years after the first Nightmare movie, even though it was, in our time, it was made a year later. But, in the continuity of the film series of the franchise, this film takes place 5 years later. It's sort of like what they did with the Friday the 13th series. Because, Friday the 13th series, they don't even... the films, the years that they were made in and the years that the film take place in are two different things, I won't go into that because this is not about those movies. Now they're investigating. Now Lisa and Jesse are investigating the this Freddy Krueger character, because now, like, the town knows. Like, you heard Grady say earlier in the film, they're like, yeah, like, she, the murder happened in the town years ago, and now we start learning more about Freddy's backstory, about the boiler room where the parents torched him, and this is.
Wow. What is this place?
Remember in the diary when Nancy said she kept finding herself in the boiler room? Freddy Krueger worked here. It's an old power plant.
What is all this?
I did some reading on our friend Fred Krueger.
The dynamic with these movies is, the curiosity of the teenagers, we gotta remember being a teenager and, the curious things that go through your mind. You want to explore. You have so much you want to know. Your brain's like a sponge at the time. So you got a lot of things going on in life, and like they wound up doing the Nightmare on Elm Street TV series, but it was more like an anthology, like Tales from the Crypt type story. But if they were to make Nightmare on Elm Street, if they were to make it into, like, let's say, a Netflix series, and reboot the series completely, and or just added in the continuity years later, and Freddy's back just tormenting the kids. And, they could go into the whole backstory and all the things that happened in the films prior, are canon. And, just, you could go into more, backstory with each of the characters. You could feel for them more by doing that. When they, finally do meet their demise, you get to see what makes them tick. Like, you go more into their psyche. You see their more dreams, and you see what Freddy goes after all their shit. But it's more carefully plotted than it is so much, like, a 90-minute movie, Instead, it's span across, 8 to 13 episodes, and you could do a lot. There's a lot of things you could do with Freddy Krueger. There's a lot of things you could do with the Nightmare films. Even though they made a remake in 2010, which I found out was like, I watched it. I didn't particularly care for it. But what that movie did was it gave Freddy more of a human backstory. Like, they go into more like the kids were all in daycare together, and he supposedly was molesting the kids. And, after they killed him, they hid it. And, the movie just takes, the remake takes a trope on this, on the original, but nowhere near compares. This is where Jesse's in his sister's room, and he's standing over her bed with the claw. I like the pills they had back then. They had like such generic names: Stay Up or Easy Wake. And back then, those things were probably like speed. Back in you're thinking this is about 85. You look at you look at how what was big in the 80s, and uppers were a thing of the 80s. Heroin came in. Heroin has always been around, but it became predominantly more effective in the 90s because of artists like Kurt Cobain and some of the grungy rock stars.
Yes, I had a bad night.
You want to talk about it?
My dad thinks I'm drugs. My mom thinks I'm crazy. And at this point, I don't know if I don't agree with her.
Hey, what's wrong with Jesse? He seems kind of freaked out.
And another thing with this, I like how they're like, his friends are like starting to notice that he's like, his friends know that he's a little like, he's a little off, and they're trying to, they're trying to help him out, and I can relate with that. If one of our boys are going through some shit,
I wish you would talk to me. We can figure it out. We can figure it out together.
There is nothing to figure out.
he
I don't want to worse than violence like a bastard.
Shut up, Brady.
Want to start up? Fine, I'll start up. No problem. Get around, buddy.
he has like you could tell there's like a bromance between him and Grady. They have like a they have like a way with each other, and there's you have a feeling like the girlfriend's trying to help, but he's such a closet, like he's so in the closet that like even him like pretend like he's like, after you've seen the movie and like you watch a documentary, you can't help. And even way before I watched all this stuff about this movie, even when I was younger, when I saw this, when I was like 8 or 9, I said to myself, this movie has a lot of there's a lot of gay undertones in it, and there's nothing wrong with it, really there isn't. The movie was way ahead of its time. It's just it's the only one in the franchise that goes in this direction, that takes it here. So let me talk a little. We're at the party now, and and it's not like Jesse was like, like a nerd kid or a loser. Like, they all had cool. They were cool with each other, and I guess they were very, like the kids that lived on Elm Street really weren't that judgmental. You know,
Jesse?
like there were no gay kids. There was no diversity with gender in these films early on. Like they didn't start. That stuff didn't start happening until later on. Until like the 2000s. So now he's in the pool shed with Lisa, and she's horny, so she wants some D, and like you could tell, like she's trying, like she's trying her best here, to comfort him the best way she could, and the best what she goes, what do guys want that'll calm him down? Let's fuck around, let's have sex, and that's what you could tell, like that's what she's getting at, but he's like so traumatized with what's going on with Freddie and his deep homoerotic fantasies that he's missing the whole pussy in his face. He's like the pussy mime. The pussy's there, but he don't want to touch it. Like he can't touch it, and it's. And he tries to, when he's trying to explain, and like as much as he is like in real life he's, he's homosexual, but in this movie like they play it as he's a straight guy, and for all intents and purposes he is. Just the movie just has a lot of undertone in it, and at the time when it came out, people got very uncomfortable with that. Like it wasn't so outgoing, even though in the 80s, like, people were coming out, but like I was saying earlier, it was before the AIDS epidemic, so there was more of a carefree, people you want to be. It wasn't until then that it put everyone in a box. It put people with different, sexual preferences, it put them in a box. And they get judged and ostracized by it. I could see it. I would have been gone down on her. Oh, the Freddy tongue. Now he backs out and he runs away from the pussy and goes to Grady's house.
Jesse, what's wrong?
And like now you got this girl feeling like just what you leave the girl who's comforting you, who's trying to help you, and you run to your boy's house instead.
You scared the shit out of me, man. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, the fuck you doing in my room?
I'm in trouble. I need you to let me stay here tonight. Are you out of your mind?
Another thing I never understood, why wasn't Grady at this party? Why wasn't he there with the rest of his friends? You would think Grady would be there, but he wasn't. Maybe he was there and he packed it in early.
And tonight with Lisa Cabana, it started to happen again. I think you are seriously losing it, bro. I'm scared, Brady. Something is trying to get inside my body. Yeah, she's female and she's waiting for you in the cabana. And you want to sleep with me.
He put it. I like how Grady said that. And you want to sleep with me?
You've had some scary dreams, okay? No. I'm over this stuff.
Now we look at Jesse's character. He can't decipher if he's dreaming it or if it's reality, and that's another trope within the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Is you can never tell when they start dreaming or when they don't, when they're dreaming and when they're not. In later films, you kind of know when they're dreaming because the hues would be red and green like Freddy's sweater, or they'd be in a boiler room, or they'd be in the house. But this movie predates that. Because Freddy has an ego, Freddy Krueger has an ego, and he needs that ego fed, so he could do his thing. You got people. He needs people to gas him up, as we like to say. He needs to get gassed up. And the catchphrase, "Don't fall asleep."
I feel like I should sleep. Sleep hard. But hard.
Now we get to see, where Grady's demise is about to occur. But you see these things happen to him while he's sleeping. Like, you see he's starting, like, Freddy I guess he can control him while he's awake. But when he's rested, that's when he could finally, come out. And as you can see, that's about to happen now.
It's starting to happen again.
Hey, man. What's wrong with you, dude?
This is like Freddy. This is like queer Freddy coming out. I could imagine this being extremely painful and traumatic. Like, his skin's ripping, blades are coming out of his fingertips, and the door ain't opening. And Freddy's inside him, like literally inside him. And it's really something. You see Freddy come pumping out of his stomach. He slices it. Yeah. And now Freddy is introduced he finally took over Jesse, and he's in the real world.
Run! 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 Open the door!
Oh, man. Probably one of the better kills in the series. Choked him against the wall. Now you see Freddy in the reflection, and he's standing there bleeding as if he did it. And Freddy's taunting him. And that's where you exit. Now we're back at the party. All the teenagers are, canoodling and aardvarking by the pool.
What happened?
Lisa, I killed Snyder. Oh my God. I'm so scared.
Jesse, what are you talking about?
It's inside me. I'm scared.
Jesse, who is doing this to you?
Fred Krueger. He's inside me. And he wants to take me again.
You gotta think of like what Freddy's doing to him. Like when Freddy wants him to kill, like you're like raping his mind. And the way he sounds like a victim again, he's like, he's gonna do it to me again, saying it like, which is kind of, when you start looking at it like that.
Last night he made me try to kill myself. The blood on my hands.
But as we watch, and you get more of a feel of what's going on. One of the best parts of the movie is about to happen anyway. This is probably my favorite of all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. This is like my favorite. My favorite like death in the film. Deaths in the film is the party scene. Because it's Freddy doing what he wants to do, tormenting the kids of Springwood. But another thing that gets me is why Freddy isn't fucking with these kids. And I think it goes back to the fact that Freddy is not strong enough to go and fuck with other people. This is where Lisa's going to explain that this is how they stopped him. You see the uh-oh.
Now he's coming back. Get out of here, Lisa.
Jesse, fight him.
I can't.
Fight it, Jesse.
And it's just having someone that believes that believes what's going on. She's explaining to him, she's living off of your fear, and that's exactly what he does. And now he's now Freddy is manifested all of Jesse, and he is now Jesse. Jesse is no more. This was pretty gnarly, He takes a bite out of her fucking calf. Now the pool heats up. I mean, this is pretty. This is like probably the coolest part of the movie, And there's Freddy just trashing random things, just making a mess, knocking the things off the shelf. I don't know why he did that. And the knife ain't doing nothing to him. And you can see Jesse's still somewhat in him. I like this. He jumps out the window and disappears. Let the carnage begin. Like, all these kids see Freddy they see this dude. And that should be enough to give them, that should be enough to start the fear up. But these kids probably just don't ever have to deal with Freddy like the kids after them. I guess these are the luckiest kids in Springwood. And now Freddy starts his destruction, trashing shit. Yep. One down, slice. Fence is hot. Can't get out. Pool's burning water. You're hit. Kids burning alive in the pool. Awesome. Trying to climb over the fence. Fire starts. You can't get out. Yep. This kid's done. And what's crazy is the adults see him now too. So this didn't traumatize the. Oh, and there goes one kid's neck broken. Oh. What I don't. Like, he's trying to talk down Freddy. Very noble of him of doing that. the pops is getting out the guns, and
What you want, right?
Help yourself, fucker.
I like this part. This is my favorite line. You are all my children now. And he is, Freddy, if his plans would have succeeded, those kids would have not been able to stand a chance against him. If these kids were to, Freddy, if things were to go as planned, he could have just took all those kids away, took all those kids out, because Freddy's now in the human form, and he just walks through he walks through the guarded fence, and now Lisa's gonna go to the boiler room and try to save him. We could talk a lot about this movie, and I think I've talked enough about it. It's just it's something of a product of the times, and the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. If you think about it, Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street, they created Freddy, like New Line Cinema, they gave Freddy its start. That's why the company New Line Cinema went on to make the Friday movies, the Lord of the Rings movies, the new It movies, Mortal Kombat. They wound up doing a whole lot of stuff, along with picking up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th franchise. For a while, Leatherface, Jason, and Freddy were all under the same umbrella. And I never understood this, the mutant dogs with human faces, with faces like babies, and I guess it's just, it's the bizarreness of Freddy's mind, and that's something that Freddy would do, because this could also be her fear, he's playing off of what she fears, and, she might fear those, dogs with little baby faces, and you see, she shuts her eyes, and she walks through them, and they go away, so, she mentally is stronger than Jesse, I think she's more of a head on her shoulder than Jesse. This is what makes me consider her the final girl, because Jessie is the protagonist of the film, but Lisa's Kim Meyer's character Lisa has just as big a part to play by saving so at the end of the day, who are you gonna say is really the hero of this film? You could say Jesse is, because he defeats Freddy, but he don't defeat Freddy alone. He defeats Freddy with the help of Lisa. And Lisa has more of a head on her shoulder. She's more clear-headed because she really wasn't affected so much by Freddy. She's just seeing it from the outside, what's happening to Jesse. Now, if the roles were reversed and, Freddy was going after her, it would, it would be a little different, and it would probably become, be a whole different movie, but, They consider Mark Pancart. He was the only dude that was considered the Scream Queen. I always thought that was kind of weird. The bugs biting her. But once again, it's all in her head, and she, she's gonna do her best to save Jesse, which makes her really the hero of the film. She's the hero saving the hero. She's the heroine saving the hero of the film, and that's you don't really see much of that. You don't see that much in movies. The final girl's usually a chick. She's a virgin. She didn't do this. She did everything by the book. And you look at Jamie Lee Curtis. You see her in Prom Night, Terror Train, Halloween. Always the virgin, always has a head on her shoulders, always defeats the killer. So, same with Sydney from Scream and Julie from I Know What You Did Last Summer. Um, Another thing with, you gotta understand, another thing with this version of Freddy is, if Freddy really wanted her dead, she would have been dead, you know.
Jesse, I know you're in there. Stop him.
No, Jesse's dead.
Lisa!
I love you, Jesse.
Like I said, if Freddy wanted her dead, Freddy would have, he would have got her right there. He wouldn't have gave her that second. But Freddy, like I said earlier, likes to play with his food. He likes to taunt his victims before they finally meet their demise by his razor glove. And so Freddy, that's the one thing that Freddy has
I am
did.
not afraid of you. He's in there, and I want him back. Imagine she was a man. I'm gonna take him away. And you. Straight back to her, you son of a bitch.
No, Jesse's dead.
But see, a part of Jesse's still alive, which is fucking with Freddy's, because he is sharing a body. He is sharing a body with, he's possessing a body.
You can't hold it, Jesse. He's losing his grip. You can get out.
He'll die with me.
Freddy also, what this film does, which kind of, they humanize him, which kind of, gets off of what Freddy really is, because he's, they dehumanize him, man, like, sort of like what Rob Zombie did with Michael Myers. The thing that made Michael Myers so unique was that he wasn't called Michael Myers, he was the shape, and he's just pure evil. But the Rob Zombie movies, they put a backstory on him, why he went crazy, why he did what he did. And, I've learned when there is no motive to why the killer is doing what he's doing, it adds flavor to the film. It adds something different. Freddy's now melting, which Freddy. Another thing with these Freddy films is, out of all of these nightmare movies, each movie he dies a certain type of way. It isn't until the last, he dies all sorts of epic ways. Holy water, burning, his mom coming out of his stomach and shit. All this stuff is, happens. And in the last movie, he gets pulled out of a dream and he's stuck with some dynamite and explodes. And like I told you, they've humanized Freddy throughout the years, and it would be different. There's also another thing I thought of, is have a prequel movie about Freddy. Have a prequel to the series that goes into what he did to provoke the parents to burn him. And have it more of a, like, you could have it as a horror movie, but you could really keep it as a crime movie. You keep it as a crime horror, and it's like a detective piece. You have the cop trying to find the murderer because they don't know and they could add a lot to it. Jesse, with her, the help of Lisa, Jesse is back to normal, and all's right with the world. Freddy's gone until he's gone. Until he comes back, but you never quite really know why he keeps going on. Like people must get he has to get the energy to come back, to be strong enough to come back. And I've said this earlier, in Freddy versus Jason, he's not strong enough to kill anybody, because he's not strong enough yet. And in this movie, he really, he needed Jesse to be strong. So now it's just, we come to the end of the film, and this wasn't really so much as a watch along. This is more of you could say it's a review, but you never know what happens. They move, and the house becomes abandoned, but they don't let you. You don't know what really happens to Jesse, because the way this ends, this is a typical. And now all these kids know Freddy's real. That really happened. They all saw it. So they're like, that was a crazy party. It was a crazy ass party. And they saw Freddy. And, I guess because of that, those kids probably had nightmares about that. And, that gave them enough fuel to come back to come back in the third film, where he starts going after, all the kids at Weston Hills, and I'm gonna do one of these for Nightmare on Elm Street 3. By the way, the driver of the bus is, in the beginning of the film, the driver of the bus is Robert Englund, playing the bus driver. And like at the end of the first movie, did Freddy really die? No. You could assume that all these kids died. You could assume that. Or that, one of them is dreaming and that's the dream. And Hope Lang was in this. Angela, I think, Christy Clark is, her friend that, she confides in throughout the film. Without the film, So, it's just... And we come to the end of the film, and yeah, I'm not sure what her name was. They never actually tell you what her friend's name is. They don't really go into it. But you should really take a look at this movie and just know that things have changed, and the Nightmare on Elm Street series went on to make billions of dollars, and it's cool, and I think it's this franchise that it should be treated with a lot of care, man, and I would love to see either a remake or a continuation of these films in the near future. I would love to see that, and we do one better, have Robert Englund reprise his role as Freddy. That would be insane, that would be so great. We're already getting a Candyman movie coming in November of this year, so, they got Tony Todd back as Candyman, so I guess you could say it is a sequel, but it's more like a reboot, but a sequel, I'm thinking it more along the lines of a sequel, because I guess that the other films have happened in the series, but Candyman is something else I'm not going to really go into, because Candyman is another one of the adventures of Clive Barker, and that's the end of it. So I hope you enjoyed my little thing here. I'm just talking a lot about a lot of things, and y'all understand. Nightmare on Elm Street's, it's a classic, and Freddys Revenge is very, against, a lot of people think it's the weakest of the series, but I think it holds a special place in the series, and anybody who likes horror movies or Freddy Krueger in general should really give it a watch. It's worth a good 90 minutes or so.